Welcome back. Today I will talk about spirituality and books, and especially my perspective and how I have approached that lens. It is an important lens for me, and I wanted to share some books I've read through the years, and also that has a connection to spirituality and faith. Totally okay to have different perspectives on faith and on spirituality and so on. This is just my take. So I accept you, whoever you are. And this is a personal video in the sense that I will tell you a bit about myself. Short version, I was born in India, in Pune. I was adopted to Sweden, where I grew up. Very, very curious on my roots, my Indian heritage, but also on history where I lived, especially mythology. And I also grew up in a Protestant Christian family. Sweden has not a strong religion here, and is not like many other countries when it comes to faith, like India and the US, for example. It's less here, but still, my interest was very big in this to search for some kind of connection, some kind of identity, I would say. And I did that through reading a lot and learning a lot. And since a small boy, I had the uh, energy and the curiosity to understand try to understand why I'm here, why we are here, what is life about, all these philosophical questions, what is the meaning of life, etc. So I guess spirituality was a great way for me to enter my reading of books, and I will show you some books here. First of all, this is a Swedish book. I think I can show you like this, and you can see it, right? So it's in Swedish. It's Christian hymns. So early age, I was going to a Bible school actually, so I learned a lot there. And here are some pictures from that book. Randomly picked, so no purpose for the video to show these. And all these hymns, I mean. So I think that gave me an idea that there might exist a God or spiritual power, and I was curious, and I mean, was this the right thing for me or not, or could it be other things? So I searched. I discussed a lot of things like that since I was a small boy as well, with parents, friends, and so on. What is life about? I think the connection between spirituality and fantasy is very, very obvious when, at least if you look at symbols, and I have a video on that you can watch later, especially focused on Malasan and spirituality. As I said, I was very curious on my roots, so at an early age, I didn't read this one, but other Hindu stories or Hindu epics, especially about Ganesha. He's the elephant-headed god, and this is Mahabharata, and it's a translation in blank verse. Not so traditional, maybe, but if you're really interested to read these stories, I think this is a good start. And it's a lot of short stories in the Hindu epics, very similar to Stephen Erickson's writing, for example. I read these to get a kind of connection to my roots and to my name, for example, which represents Vishnu. And so I had two perspectives, one Christian perspective and then one roots perspective or Hindu perspective. Um, but I think I was quite open with searching. So I also became very curious on the Buddha, and that was maybe later. Maybe I'm 46 at the moment, so this was later, maybe when I was 20 or something like that. So here is, if you're interested about the Buddha, this is an introduction by Karen Armstrong. It's scientific, so to speak, and not religious or anything, but it's an interesting story. I think we can learn a lot. I think spirituality for me has to do with grasping the moment. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past, not thinking about your desires, what you want. Be happy with what you have, loving yourself, be compassionate to others, etc. So for me, that is values that I practice also in my yoga practice. Um, and yoga was part of is part of my life. I'm actually sitting in the room where I'm doing my pranayama training, hatha yoga training. I do it once a week. So the Yoga Sutra by Patanjali. This is a Swedish version. You can probably find it in your language if you're interested. Is important for practice and learns us a lot about grasping what life can be about and what is life is not about. I think all spiritual texts I've read so far in the world are similar. They differ when it comes to difficult stuff like politics, symbols, etc. I'm interested in the faith aspect, so I'm a spiritual seeker in that sense. I think you can find good things from everywhere if you look at the philosophy of the faiths. My interest in Buddhism made me interested in Zen meditation as well. So I've been practicing Zen at least for a year. And here is one book about that. It's called Beyond Thinking by Dogen. He's very well known if you're into Zen. Just sitting, meditating, appreciating life yourself. And not doing anything. I think that those spiritual aspects can also be found in fantasy literature. You usually have some kind of monk or person with deep spiritual connection, either through his or her way of living or because they are religious in the sense of believing in gods, for example, in Malasan. I think many characters in fantasy books have usually one or two that have a deeper sense, a perspective, and a deeper feelings about, not aiming for power or not aiming for their desires. So I think there is a connection there. And that's when I read a fantasy book or a science fiction book as well. I usually like those characters who are wise, you could say, um, or has that kind of wisdom. Um, Another book that I would like to show you is back to Hinduism again, but it's the Upanishad. Upanishad. I can read. An Upanishad is a teaching session with a guru, and these 13 texts in this book form a series of philosophical discourses between teacher and student. It's very deep. I can honestly say I don't grasp everything. Let's see. No, maybe. But it's deep questions about who sees, who talks, who speaks, who lives through you. Is there some kind of spiritual power behind you that gives you energy? If so, what? What can that be? Spirits and spirituality is extremely common in fantasy. So I think that is a an interesting point, and I think that's an interesting way of reading fantasy. Fantasy can be an entrance for the spiritual seeker. That was one of my um, introductory texts to my channel before. I haven't that it's not there anymore, but still, can fantasy be an interest for the spiritual seeker, and can science fiction be that as well? Of course, mythology can, but mythology is a bit biased because we used to call things mythology that is not in our own culture. So there is Hindu mythology, maybe there are Christian mythology and um, East Asian mythology, but in every country, the what you call mythology can be a real faith that people believe in and they go to worship and to pray and so on. Um, when I was small, I also had not only interests in Christianity, but also in the roots of the country where I grew up and where I live, and that is, of course, the Norse mythology. And so I read this is a book, Nordic Gods and Hero Tales. There are many signs here of the past in all Scandinavia, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland. Street names. There are uh, rune. I don't know if you say so in English. Rune. There's special stones with the alphabet of the time during the Viking era, and we have traces of that time here, and also the god names, Odin and for example. And we have some celebrations that might have roots from all the way back to that time. There is a tradition here of polytheism in Scandinavia that is now forgotten, and that has deep spiritual power. Like in all of Europe, we have the Druids and the Celts, and we have the ancient Greeks, and we have the Romans, and so on, etc. That are similar to Hinduism, for example, and that are also similar to how many pantheons in the fantasy books are structured. So I think that is very interesting, and it has guided me in my interpretation, in my reading of different fantasy books and science fiction books as well, especially during the latest years when I started to read more science fiction. Um, I will now show you some philosophical books that, at least two, that don't have a spiritual value, but the idea of um, living in the moment, for example, that's a cliche idea, is recurrent in a lot of philosophical traditions as well as in many spiritual traditions. So, first of all, I just wanted to show you the book of Chuang Tzu. This is, we see how this goes. I hope you can see it like this at least. Yes. This is a one of the founders of Taoism. Taoism is something I'm very interested in. I think there is a lot of wisdom there that can help you to live a good life. Yin yang, understanding opposites, um, have balance, have faith, trust the process, etc. This is a book where there's a lot of short stories, and they might seem a bit strange, and they are very anti-hierarchical and very uh, joyful towards living a happy life. So usually you can find that kind of personalities in fantasy books as well. Another book here is maybe if you're an American, you probably know about this book. It's Henrik David Thoreau, Walden. He moves into a cottage where he lives. He seems to be a bit sponsored, actually, I think. But he lives there, and just the writes about doing nothing. Doing nothing. It's very connected to Zen, I think. It's very connected to the spiritual life. You choose to live a spiritual life. I mean that you don't have any belongings and you live in a monastery or you live in a temple or in an ashram or anything like that. Um, and that kind of wisdom you can get from living like that is often reflected in fantasy books. There is usually a few wise people roaming around, and are usually very important for the story. Not always, but often. The last book I wanted to show you is the Albert Camus, some say in English. So, but Camus is French. The myth about Sisyphus, like this, like this, because the I see the camera lens is a bit blurry. The meaning of life, and what is the meaning of life? Uh, you can create your own meaning. There is no uh, objective meaning in life. At least that's one of the points in the myth about Sisyphus. And Sisyphus is a prisoner in Greek mythology, and he has a boulder. He goes up the hill with a boulder, and then the boulder rolls down, and then they go back to push it up again. Um, that's something that has affected me lately a lot, and I've become very happy by reading the myth of Sisyphus. What's the meaning of reading Malasan? For me, it has a lot of meaning. For you, maybe not. Or other books. We create our own meaning, and we should be happy with that and not do what others people tell you, I think. Um, so some perspectives there on my spiritual reading, and I also practice yoga, as I told you. And I think you can gain a lot of spiritual wisdom and power from fantasy books. I've already talked so much about Malasan, so I won't do that, but so much. But also Stephen Ruffio's Empire of Silence, you can get a lot of interesting perspectives from that book, depending on how you interpret the book, of course. But obviously, the main character, Hadrian Marlowe, is on a spiritual journey. He's searching for himself. When I read fantasy books during the years, because I've also been on a journey for my identity, and I'm happy I found it. And for those left here still listening, I went back to my birth country and birth city of Pune, and I'm learning Marathi. That's the language of where I'm born, and also connected to a lot of cultural and spiritual traditions over there that I match my life and that I really enjoy. Um, so reading about the hero's journey, people who does that journey, and reading about uh, the struggles they have or the role models they meet, like Gandalf, if we take a classic example, that has inspired me, and the companions they've had. They've also become my friends. So they've helped me on my own journey. So I think I'll stop there. And I'm curious about your reflections on what I've told you. I know many people read fantasy and science fiction just for entertainment. That has not been my way. Actually, I've reading currently the Dragonbone share by Tad Williams. I really enjoyed it initially, and I will finish it. Now I'm in the middle of the book, and I feel that it doesn't really take these issues seriously like other books do. And I would say fantasy and science fiction who really tackles philosophical questions, they have more in common with mythological works, like the Iliad, for example, or the Odyssey, um, than with fantasy that's maybe more for pure entertainment or aimed at, you could say, younger people. I don't mean that's bad. I've read a lot of Bilbo, for example, and I really love it. But I think fantasy and science fiction that, like Dune, for example, uh, that really challenge us in our ways of looking at life here on Earth right now, or challenges our way of looking at ourselves, our spiritual being, or how we view the soul. That's something very, very different from other kinds of fantasy and science fiction. That's at least my take on that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a rant, a spiritual rant. So please like, please subscribe. More videos will come. I've had an ear infection that is now over, so I'll have time to produce videos. That it will be more Malas and lore videos. I understand they have been appreciated. I will also make some videos with other booktubers and interested people in the channel. So I hope you will like that. And until next time, enjoy evening. Have a good reading day, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.